So I'm just going to go ahead and get this over with. I'm recording this just after 9 a.m. Saturday, March 14th. We're looking at the current Storm Prediction Center Day 3 outlook. So this is for Monday, and it's highlighting a pretty decent chance of seeing some severe weather, especially in this orange shaded region, which is a level 3 out of 5 of seeing some pretty hefty thunderstorms. If we go over here to the probabilistic, this hatched area is a new conditional intensity group 1. So anywhere in the hatched region could see some significant severe weather if thunderstorms were to occur. So this is a conditional, and this is where the Storm Prediction Center is trying to communicate as much information from the graphics as possible. So the shading here indicates pretty much an aerial coverage of seeing severe weather within a particular distance from any particular point. In this case, 25 miles from any particular point. The red is a 30% chance of any type of severe weather. Tornadoes, wind, and hail. The yellow is a 15% chance, and the brown is the 5% chance. The hatched region says or indicates that that if anything occurs, it will be significant. So, we're looking at it right now. We're looking at it. So, this is the current forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. Some of these major cities include Washington, D.C., technically not in my area of interest, Richmond, Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, New Bern, Elizabeth City, Raleigh, Durham, Greensboro, Statesville, Charlotte, Florence, Columbia, and places like Wilmington are also under the threat of seeing some pretty hefty thunderstorms. Okay, so let's take a look at what's driving this. So right now, this is the Euro. This is analyzed from last night's run, the 0Z run, and it pretty much shows initially some zonal flow across the Carolinas and Virginias, maybe a bit of a cyclonic curvature to the flow aloft. This is at 500 millibars, so this is about midways up. If we push this forward, the theme for today is going to be the development of a trough up here in the Pacific Northwest through today. Tomorrow, the significant severe weather will occur in the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys, places like Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, perhaps eastern Oklahoma. We'll see some significant severe weather. Through the day, Sunday, this is going to sharpen and become neutral, which means it's pretty much up and down, north to south. And then through the day, Monday, so this is 8 a.m. Monday morning, you're going to have a closed low somewhere towards Chicago or Milwaukee with a pretty sharp trough maturing, going from a maybe perhaps a slightly positive tilt, neutral, to a negatively tilted trough through the day Monday. And this signifies that the trough is maturing, and pretty strong surface cyclone genesis might be occurring. Now, what's a saving grace is this cyclone genesis might be really far up north towards the Great Lakes. But this is going to be pushing a pretty strong cold front through the Virginias and Carolinas, and the earlier that cold front pushes through in the day, the earlier in the day, the better. Some of the models did have a slightly later passage of the cold front. For instance, in Charlotte, maybe early afternoon in previous model runs, and that would be very bad because you'd have allowed time for daytime heating, creates instability, and then you get worse storms. But a An earlier crossing or an earlier passage means it won't have time to destabilize. So that's what we're hoping for, at least across the western half of the Carolinas and Virginias. Now, no matter what, so far, the eastern part of the state, pretty much along that I-95 corridor and points eastward, maybe even 77 and points eastward, that's going to be the area where you might even have some discrete storms out ahead of the line. And that, given the kinematics, might not be great, because any storms that develop out ahead of the line in isolation or in discrete nature would be primarily supercells, capable of all hazards. So damaging winds, large hail, and perhaps a tornado or two. And I wouldn't be surprised if a tornado or two were to occur. So that's the Euro model. If we take a look at the NAM, taking a look at the NAM, it pretty much shows a similar story. Through the day, a development of the trough in the Pacific Northwest. Through the day Sunday, it sharpens very quickly, allowing storms to develop over the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. And then it quickly matures through the day and even turns maybe slightly negatively tilted. So the two models agree. So we know the evolution of the upper levels are pretty solid. We know what's going to happen at the upper levels. What's going to happen at the surface is a different story. And this is where my favorite model, Rufus, comes in. So if we load up Rufus, the RRFS, and we go all the way to here. So there's the storms out in the Mississippi River Valley through the day Sunday. You notice some convection along I-77 corridor, upstate South Carolina into North Carolina, and perhaps even Virginia. Those could be some severe storms, but we're watching this line, and the earlier this line makes it through, the better. Now, what's concerning is you see these storms out in the discrete nature, out ahead of this main line. So this is 8 a.m. and this is the latest Rufus. This is 6Z Rufus. These storms have the potential to be all hazards. So if we go through the day, you continue to see development out ahead of the main line, and that's the concerning part for this forecast. Is if that's a big if storms were to develop out ahead of the main line, these would quickly become supercellular. Now, one of the limiting factors is from the forecast profiles, especially from the NAM, is it leaves something to be desired for the thermodynamics. There's not a lot of energy for these thunderstorms to occur. So this is going to be your classic skinny cape, high shear type of environment, which means that these thunderstorms could be low-topped. And if they are low-topped, then you will probably won't hear them coming, because since they're low-topped, they can't electrify. So there'll be no thunder, just a tornado. Isn't that weird? It has happened before, but you know. And that's the concerning part of this forecast. Now, dealing with the main line, since we have such, so this is at 12 p.m., it's just now getting through the Charlotte metro area, and you continue to see some of these discrete supercells out in front. And that's no good. We don't want that. This might change. There's a lot that is going to go into this forecast, and it really depends on what happens Sunday, if you can believe it. What happens Sunday will dictate what happens Monday. So if this line actually pushes out ahead of the front at a pretty significant pace, like the Rufus is depicting, then places like Asheville, perhaps even Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg, Boone, Greensboro, they might be spared with the worst. They might be spared of the worst type of severe weather. However, places like Wilmington, Florence, Raleigh, Virginia Beach, perhaps Richmond, Virginia, unfortunately, it still looks like a pretty significant severe weather event is possible with tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds, especially once the line gets through there. That line will probably bring some pretty hefty winds with it because kinematically we are superb. I mean, you got great low-level curvature in the photographs indicating a strong low-level shear, and often that strong low-level shear could supplement the lack of buoyancy. So what I'm trying to say is, even though there's not a lot of low-level energy for these storms, especially these discrete storms, the fact that we have some very strong low-level shear, it might not matter. So, there's some physics involved, some pretty interesting physics actually. But anyways, that's what we're dealing with. Now's the time to prepare. Like some digital meteorologists say, don't be scared, be prepared, which is great advice. And now's the time to start preparing for the possibility of power outages. Get your safety plans in place. And, of course, stay tuned to your local National Weather Service or your favorite media outlet for all warnings and advisories. And this channel is just here for discussion and keep you in the loop. With that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will probably see you later.